cure. Viet used to live in Saigon, and after suffering from headaches for some time, he went to see a local doctor. The doctor examined Viet, but could find nothing wrong, and so he was sent to the nearby hospital for further testing. The hospital was crowded and had many sick and injured people lying in the corridors. Viet made his way through the people and to the specialist room. He waited outside the room patiently. Time flew by, and he had been waiting for hours before his name was finally called out. He walked in, and the doctor began tests on him. There were many tests, and some of them were very painful. Then Viet returned to his small home in the suburbs of Saigon. After a few days, he received a letter from the hospital requesting him to return to see the specialist. When he arrived, he was shown through to a waiting doctor who had a very peculiar expression on his face. The news was terrible. Viet left the doctor's room and sat outside on a chair and placed his head into his hands. "Cancer," he said with tears in his eyes. The doctor gave him 3 weeks to live, and at 20 years old, Viet was angry that he would not be able to do all of the things he had dreamt of. Viet returned home and told his family the news. Their reaction was normal, apart from his father. "This will not happen. I will take you to see different doctors and we will never give up," his father declared in a defiant voice. They saw many doctors from Saigon to Hanoi, but their diagnosis was always the same. But Viet was running out of time. Then 2 weeks later, Viet was woken up by his father. "Son, wake up. I have found a doctor who said that he can help you recover." His father yelled loudly. "Get up and let's go," he screamed as Viet wiped his eyes. His father had to work that day, so Viet walked across the city to see the mysterious doctor. His heart felt gloomy as he walked along. How can this doctor be so different when 20 others said the same thing? He thought as he walked along silently. The streets were very noisy this day, and there were lots of people running around and aeroplanes flying overhead, but nothing could distract him from his appointment. Viet found the street and walked down looking for the address he had been given by his father. 43, 44, 45, there it is, number 46, he said as he saw the number on the door. The room was empty. No people or furniture was inside the room. He called out, "Hello, is anyone there?" and then listened for a reply. There was no reply, but after a few seconds a woman appeared from the stairs and beckoned him to follow her. He walked cautiously upstairs, and a feeling of anxiety filled his heart. When he reached the top of the stairs, his anxious feelings were suppressed by a man's face smiling at him in the next room. Viet walked through to the next room and was asked to sit down. The doctor introduced himself and explained about the drug. He was doubtful as he listened intently to the man. "I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. This medicine was discovered by me by accident, but it will cure any illness," the man explained. The man gave Viet a small orange-covered pill and said swallow it. Viet was not sure, but if the other doctors were right, he only had a week left to live. He put his trust in this stranger and then placed the pill into his mouth. It tasted bitter, and he had trouble swallowing the small tablet. He started to feel dizzy, and the room started spinning like he was drunk. Viet fell from the chair onto the floor and held his head in agony. Suddenly there was a huge explosion and smoke everywhere. He looked around and saw daylight coming from where the wall once stood before passing out. Viet woke up a few hours later and could hear many voices outside. They sounded French, but he could not be sure. As the early morning daylight came shining through the enormous hole in the wall of the house, he carefully peeked through. There were hundreds of French soldiers walking around outside, and many people were dead in the street. Viet was lucky to escape Saigon, and a few days later, with the help of some friends and surviving family members, he travelled across the country to Hanoi, where he settled down with his sister and father. As for the cure, well, Viet is still alive and well, very well in fact. Everything that happened in this story was over 65 years ago, and he has not aged a single day. He is 85 years old, but to everyone else he is only 20 years old. He is never married because he didn't want his wife to see him grow old and die. But he has had over 40 girlfriends. Viet has outlived his family, and each day he works as a scientist. He looks for the cure that he was given to him so many years ago, and he has just started learning English with a very handsome and talented teacher called Paul. The end. Thank you for listening. See you next time.